Polygon task cards. For number 1, 12 corresponded to 6. So if we reduce that, our scale factor is 201. That's the answer to letter A. For B, perimeters, I could add up all of the lengths of each side and compare that to the sum of all of the lengths of the sides over here. However, by definition, the perimeters are going to be proportional if the side lengths are proportional. So the answer is 2 over 1 for both A and B. For number 2, they ask us to find the values of all the variables for the same problem. So since 12 is double what 6 is, to find x, we're just going to take 4 times 2, and x is going to be 8. And to find y, we go the opposite direction. We divide by 2, and y is going to be equal to 5. Number 3, on the left, we'll create a ratio for the perimeters. On the right, we'll create a ratio for the side lengths. We know one of them is 4. We don't know the other. We can cross multiply. 20x is equal to 28 times 4, which is 112. Divide this by 20. X is equal to 5.6. For number 4, we have 7 over 9, and we know one perimeter is 42. And 42 goes with ABC, which was the first one, so the 7, that's why it has to be on top. We cross multiply. 42 times 9 divided by 7. 54 was the answer. For 5, they want to know the scale factor and then the unknown lengths. If you're paying attention, we had to rotate one of these triangles because the single loop matches up with the single loop, but the double loop here matches up with this double loop, and the green angle matches up with the green angle. So we can kind of match these up by color. 40 is between red and green, and so is 48. We set up our proportion that way. The JKL one had to come first. Then we go to 35 between red and blue, and that matches up with 42. And our last one is x over 24. If we reduce these fractions, like 40 over 48, we find that our scale factor is equal to 5 over 6. To figure out x over 24, well, personally, I would probably do 24 divided by 6 times 5. But we could cross multiply. 24 times 5 is equal to 6x. When we divide both sides by 6, we get x equals 20. For number 6, the scale factor of QRSP to STUW, the only side length that is listed in both is 27 and 21. And if we simplify that fraction, we're looking at 9 over 7. That's our scale factor. To find the unknown length, we can set this equal to y over 35 and cross multiply. 27 times 35 divided by 21. The answer for y is 45. So in number 7, I'm using the colors to indicate the angles again. And we can see here that 2 is between the red and the blue. And that matches up with 3, which is also between the red and the blue. And if I want to figure out x or y, I'm going to plug in the relevant ratios. So let's start with y. That's 2/3 y divided by 8, because they're both between the blue and the green. If I cross multiply and divide, y is equal to 8. Setting up the proportion for the x, well, I might notice that when I cross multiply, this 2 is going to cancel out this 1/2, so there's no point in really even distributing. I can just rewrite it like this and then distribute on the right. So once I have 3x plus 9, I'll make this x is equal to 11. For number 8, you have to pay close attention to the order of the letters in the similarity statement. D and F come first. That means that angle D over here is congruent to angle F. And angle R is congruent to angle T. Similarly, K matches up with R. And E and E. So if I'm setting up a proportion, I'm going to use 8 and 10, which are between the black and the green, as my base, and then I'm going to plug in various ones for x and y. So between black and blue here, I have 1/2 times 2x plus 4, and the same on the other side, I have 22. I simplify on the left, and notice that 10 times 1/2 is 5. Then I can distribute, and if I move the 20 over, x is going to equal 15.6. I can use 8 over 10 again, but to solve for y, I need to change which ratio on the right side of my equation. So I'm going to match between blue and red and between blue and red. I match these up from up here. Again, when I cross multiply, 10 times 1/5 is 2. Don't forget to distribute to both terms. And my final answer will be 54. For number 9, if you color each of the letters in these similarity statements, you can see which ones match up. And remember that in similarity statements, we are saying that all of the angles are congruent. So this blue one, even though it has nothing there, is going to be 86 degrees, just like W. And P here is going to be 94 degrees, just like T. So a pretty good way to figure out the values of M and K is to remember that rectangles, like all quadrilaterals, have a sum of 360 when it comes to their interior angles. So we know 3 of them, we can figure out what K is. We know 3 of them, we can figure out what M is. And if you went ahead and subtracted all the knowns from 360 and solved the equations, you would get the answers M equals 410 and K equals 147. The key challenge was remembering that because these two are similar, all of the angles are congruent. And again, for number 10, we are not doing proportions. That would be for the side lengths. Because we're looking at angles, we set them equal and we solve. So we know that angle I is congruent to angle S. Those are the only two angles without any of those loops, so they are the ones that are equal. So we can set up our equation that 1/2 times the quantity 2a minus 80 is equal to 87. If we go through the steps, we will solve that a is equal to 127. To figure out b, that's the one with 3 swoops, which is f. So we can say that angle r is congruent to angle f. And we can say that 1/4 of the quantity 4b plus 120 is equal to 60. So if we get rid of the 1/4, then we have 4b plus 120 is equal to 240. 4b is equal to 120. b is equal to 30. So since we have two complementary angles, let's call them A and B, we know that A plus B is going to equal 90. So we can say 4x plus 5x is equal to 90, for example, since the ratio is 4 to 5. So if 9x is 90 and x is going to be 10, what are the measures of both angles? 40 degrees and 50 degrees. You just plug them back in. Same thing on the other side. We know that the two angles are going to add up to 180 because they're supplementary. So we can say 2x plus 7x is equal to 180. If 9x is equal to 180, then x is going to be 20. If we plug that back in, we have 40 degrees and 140 degrees. So in 13, they gave us S, D, and E. Notice that S and G are going to be the same. They correspond in our similarity statement. So the only column missing here is F or R, which means if I take 360 and I subtract 92, I subtract 99, and I subtract 81, whatever's left is my 88 degrees is the answer. Similarly for 14, 87 is for M, A is 110, and L is 91. The only letter I don't account for is this third one. So if I subtract these three numbers from 360, my answer is going to be 72 degrees. 15, I'm looking at DEFG, similar to PQRS, and I want to know the scale factor between the two. So two of the sides have to line up here, so PQ and DE line up, they're the first two letters. And I want scale factor of PQRS to DEFG, so I'm going to write this as 3 over 8. That can't be simplified, so I'm done. For 16, they tell us AT, they tell us MH, and then they tell us NG. So which one of these matches the position of NG? Well, it's AT. And if we want to go from math to English, well, you travel through the portal. But also, we can put the 7 on top, and we can put the 4 on bottom. And then we're done. In 17, we see DG, we see EF. And then they give us over here PS. So the PS and DG ones match up, and the QR and the EF ones match up. They want to know what is DG. I'm going to set up my proportion this way, and if I cross multiply, and then I distribute, then I'll move the x's to the left, and the numbers to the right. I'm going to end up with that x equals 3.7 or 375. And then I have to add 7 to this. Oops, that was 4.375. So the answer here for DG is 11.375. In 18, MA, EN, HT, LG. So I differentiated those with the symbols. If I set up my proportion correctly, it looks like this. If I cross multiply, I have 6 times the quantity 2x minus 1 is equal to 4 times the quantity x plus 2. If I distribute, I have 12x minus 6 is equal to 4x plus 8. 8x is equal to 14. X is equal to 1.75. I add 2 to that, and HT is equal to 3.75. So measures of angles of a triangle have to add up to 180. So 2x plus 3x plus 5x equals 180. 10x equals 180. X is equal to 18. The smallest angle, 2 times 18, is equal to 36. For 20, a quadrilateral, all of the sides are going to add up to 102. So 2x plus 3x plus 5x plus 7x is equal to the perimeter, 102 centimeters. So if 17x is equal to 102, then x is 6. They went on the longest side, so 7 times 6 is equal to 42. 21, define the scale factor of A, B, C, D to E, F, G, H. We're going to look for whatever sides match up perfectly, and the answer is 24 over 18. We can simplify that. You could divide them both by 6, and it's 4/3. If I do it the other way around, it'll end up being 18 over 24, or 3/4. So the order of which direction you go matters. And the ratio of perimeters, back to A, is going to be 4/3 again, because the ratio of perimeters is the same as the scale factor. So heading over here to 22, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, the sides we're looking at are the 25 and the 10. If we start with the 25, it's going to end up like this. You could divide by 5, and we get 5 over 2. If we're going in the opposite direction, then we end up with 2 over 5. The ratio of perimeters is going to be the same as A, so that's going to be back to 5/2. So on the key, there were only, what, 4 errors?